Welcome back to Port Elizabeth, the beautiful city. This is part 19. I was interrupted previously, so I actually terminated that video. And we resume at the Holy Trinity Anglican Church, the view from Havelock Street. This could be very easily in the middle of some English village, which is kind of appropriate since it was British settlers that really established this town. So lovely spring flowers here, summer. Magnificent piece of architecture, really. And then, having in previous videos started out on this long walk at the Horse Memorial, I returned there because the sun was now out, and I thought I'd try again, get some pictures with the sun beating down. It's okay, I started into the sun, which was probably foolish, but we'll get to the properly lit images shortly. You can see the craftsmanship on the horse's head and even the soldier's face. Stunning. And that's just a Google thing of where I walked. So I can give you a little hint. The Horse Memorial is actually further up than that. This is Belmont Terrace, which runs between the Donkin Reserve and the Edward Hotel. Here's the Grand Hotel. Here's here's Havelock Street and Havelock Square with those lovely historic buildings there. We went along Alfred Terrace with the Hill Presbyterian Church over there. And this is Ivy Street with those wonderful old historic buildings. Upper Hill Street, which we visited. Pearson Street here with the Grey Institute and that parsonage house. Talking of parsonages, here's Castle Hill. And 7 Castle Hill is down there. These are the 2 that were destroyed. The Drill Hall is here. Prospect Hill, lovely cottages along it. Yeah, so plenty more actually in Central. This is the fabric of an old city in South African terms. It's, I've been following a chap in the UK, John Rogers, who's walking the streets and surrounds of London, and he feels safe wherever he goes. He's carrying expensive equipment, videographic equipment. He's never fears for his safety, and all the buildings he sees are generally being looked after, using money from the National Trust or whatever. And here we sit in a very different situation. It's interesting to view this here is how the Donkin Reserve looked when I got here in 84. this is the old layout. It just had these paths going across and then a handful of trees dotting the top area. Now, of course, they've extended this to a point here where that big flag is, and all sorts of new stuff. They've planted palms all along here. And this is the Donkin Row, which has been, at this point, was the original. It was run down, certainly, and you can see the different color roofs and things. This is that open parking area I told you about. And this is Constitution Hill. So a lot of these historic buildings are in these two streets as well, 1860s, even 1820s, one of these buildings. Allowed to go to ruin, I'm afraid. And yeah, anyway, I'm not sure. Oh, yes, yeah. So I actually did focus in on where the Horse Memorial is. Cape Road here, Rink Street, and Parliament Street. So this is actually an extension of Parliament Street, comes up through there. So Cape Road ends here, and then it becomes Russell Road. So we're actually going to now just go into the main library for a bit. This was done on 19th of September 2014. We've seen this building before, opened in 1902, Victorian Gothic. Next to it is the Queen Victoria statue, 1903, Sicilian marble. And it's interesting, I just seeing here that I wrote that they planned to actually demolish the library in the 1960s to make way for a provincial administration block. Fortunately, that never happened. And St. Mary's Cathedral is right next door on the side of the library, so we might get there. First, though, as I set out on this adventure, work was going ahead on the extension to the Opera House. And of course, across the road from the Opera House in the back of this would be Prospect Hill, burnt out buildings, and that is just unacceptable in a modern city to have allowed that for so long. And here's this ridiculous, I find, sculpture of these taxis, sides of, anyway. St. Augustine's in all its glory with its peripheral buildings, also important architecturally. And that's part of this St. Augustine's complex with Plainace next to it. And here we're at the library, and I love this combination of the library's elaborate, ornate sort of facade, St. Mary's Cathedral in the background there. Let's see if we can home in a bit. And then this UBS building, I think it was called, great Art Deco building. So the facade of the main library at this point looking quite good, but it would have been about to be evacuated or vacated is the word. We've seen this before, but I think the light and the sky were very nice on this day. So there's a lovely combination of four iconic buildings and a monument. So in the 80s when I was here, this facade was rather, okay, let's just get back to, yeah. So they had these awful little awnings hang over here to keep out the sun. But and I think they even had big plate glass windows or something. It was really had destroyed it. So fortunately, back in the late 80s, they got a stained glass expert in PE at the university, or at the Technicon as it was then, Hunter Nesbitt, to redo all the stained glass that had been removed. And then they got rid of those awnings, just put some proper glass that kept out the sun, and there we have it, back to its original. But unfortunately, 20 years later, and this thing was being allowed to go to rack and ruin again. So I got inside there. I actually was fortunate to bump into a tour party that the woman who was running the Afrikaner library operated. So this is a bit dark, but you can see there PEC of C. And so this wrought iron thing tells you that the Port Elizabeth Chamber of Commerce operated in the library. I've sort of zoomed in a bit, but oh yes, now I got this because my book on the history of PE, we show the whole transformation of the market square over 200 years. And this was it in about the 1850s, 60s or so. And we had, that is where the library was, this building here called the Commercial Hall. Let's just read this. 1865, the central building is Commercial Hall, where the library now stands. A small reading society known as the Port Elizabeth News Society was established in 1844. Was in a room in Jetty Street. The reading matter was mainly English magazines and London newspapers, main South African newspapers published at the time, and a small collection of books. In 1845, the society moved to a rented room in the Commercial Hall here. And this is the original St. Mary's, built in 1832, rebuilt or in 1896 after that fire. So here you can see the nice view one had of the church from the market square. And this is this beautiful obelisk that Patterson, the founder of the Herald, actually erected in memory of his mate, his colleague. So now what's left of it on the Port Elizabeth beachfront is from about there. So that they've lost all this elegance that's given by this base, and eventually a water trough was erected around this, and it became a real focal point and center of the market square, just in front of the city hall to the left, and this great old building here too. And look at these houses also have been lost in what's the street that runs up the side of the it'll come to me. Anyway, heading into the library, just beautiful paneling, wood paneling. So a war memorial here. Delville Wood, Flanders, Southwest Africa. (1848 to 1948), Port Elizabeth Library Centenary, unveiled by Jan Hofmeyer. He was going to be Jan Smuts's successor, but he died in the year 1948 that the National Party came to power. Very sad. So inside the main hall of the library is this wonderful dome stained glass fanlight. The library was actually full of books, not surprisingly, but I don't know how many libraries have this in South Africa, particularly or as ornate as this. beautiful, these narrow little walkways all around, just so, and then stained glass everywhere. There was a weather station on this point in the library. And off every corner of the main room are these smaller, specialized rooms for books, different types of genre or whatever. A bit dark, but it's a bit better. So this was Carol Victor, who is the Afrikaner librarian, and she showed us around. The molded ceiling, On each of these is a different professional trade, a little motif. I think that's a telescope there. Signs of the zodiac. Science, that telescope. And on the floor, this decoration here, it looks like the roses of English history. Looks like Shakespeare on the right there, maybe, famous authors. So onto one of the balconies upstairs, and the view down. So I wrote this little homily about libraries. You can pause it if you like and read it. Then I think we went to the Afrikaner library, and this was an old Ritter's clock. Ritter was a jeweler in town. It still is. And then all these fans. And the Campanile viewed through a little side window. This guy, Owen Smith, born in the UK in 1804, arrived in the Cape in 1819. Born in Scarborough, died in London in 1871, one of the leading merchants of PE. The ship Sarah was a merchant ship. So, that's just a snippet of history. The Afrikaner Library. Port Elizabeth Advertiser newspaper from 1917. Dunlop Tires, 1917. were being used in World War One. Can you believe it? Early council, photos of early city councils. The Mail and Empire, Toronto. Herbert Spencer, English philosopher. The Leader newspaper, Melbourne. So Thomas Baines actually painted this. And so I think he did this as well. And then she showed us the plans of this building by Henry Cheers of Twickenham, London, who won a competition in 1897 to design the building. Classic. Given my love for architectural drawings, that's the side elevation. And the others, yeah, this is the, trying to remember the name of that street again that runs up the side. So yeah, that's that building I was showing you, Commercial Hall. You can see the nature. I think this was the original opera house. It had another name. See, so they have all these old pictures of PE as well. You'll find a lot of those in my book. The Asian newspaper, Calcutta. The Times and the Daily Telegraph, famous papers. And exiting the library, known as the Savage Memorial Hall. Okay, so we're going to leave it at that because we're now heading into the St. Mary's Church. I think we'll have to pause it at this point. Cheers.